Joy Greenberg is the director of the Center on National Security at Fordham University, joining us now. Hey, Karen, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Based on what we know so far, what is your experience telling you about this attack?
Well, what it's telling you is that we know less about this attack than we have about many of the other attacks that have taken place in London and elsewhere in Europe. They don't seem to have identified an individual. They probably have some kind of surveillance video that they're not showing. But they don't seem to be telling us that it's a kind of network, as they thought they had in Brussels, in Paris, and elsewhere. In Manchester even. So I think that we really don't know on this one, and they're going to let us know in their own good time. I think the focus is on the investigation itself rather than on letting us know, and maybe that's for the best.
Yeah, there's still a manhunt underway. You know, ISIS has claimed responsibility for this attack, although there's no evidence of that. We've seen them claim claim responsibility for attacks like this before. How much credence do you put in those early claims of responsibility?
You know, it's a very interesting thing. It's both on the part of law enforcement and on the part of ISIS. So ISIS will claim responsibility, and at the same time, law enforcement will blame ISIS, which sort of reinforces the idea that ISIS can claim responsibility without any direct responsibility. So the question is it ISIS inspired, as the term that we've come to rely upon so much, or is it ISIS directed? And I think we really don't know. ISIS, you know, wants to take responsibilities for these acts. They want to be threatening the West. They want to be threatening this way of life. But there's no there until this investigation is done.
You talk about ISIS inspired, and that leads me to my next question, Karen, which is we saw the president weigh in on Twitter earlier regarding the role of the internet in spreading the message. First of all, do we know yet if the internet played a role in this specific attack? And then, in general, is social media leading to more of this type of incident?
Yeah, we have, look, social media helps inspire people, but it is not the cause. Going from being influenced about acts of brutality and cruelty and anger around the world is very different than actually devising a bomb or picking a target. And so while it's not helpful to say it's what causes it is really a far cry from helping us being able to solve it. Social media can make it harder, but it's no way to definitively identify a suspect or actually figure out who's going to be responsible or engaged in such an attack.
The other side of the coin is that this was being described as a homemade bomb, and you know, for decades, really, you know, homemade bombs have been an issue. It's not like when YouTube came up, that was the first time a homemade bomb was made. But is the internet and social media also helping to sort of spread the techniques?
Yeah, I mean, you can find out how to make a bomb online, and you have been able to do that for well over a decade. So it's not great that you can find that out there. What this bomb attack tells you, and not unlike the Rahimi attack in Chelsea in New York months ago, is that it's really very hard to do this kind of thing. It's still scary, it's still potentially dangerous, but even with downloading something from the internet, what the difference is if somebody's actually trained, actually knows how to use a weapon, actually knows how to build a bomb. So it's both good news and bad news at the same time.
Yeah, there were still, you know, about 24 people injured, and yet this bomb didn't actually even detonate. Karen, how can officials begin to even tackle the issue of propaganda and terror recruitment online?
I think they have begun to try to tackle it. I think they're talking to the Facebooks and Twitters and others to try to get to the bottom of this and come out with some kind of policy. But again, I think we're fooling ourselves if we think that taking down things on the internet is going to solve this problem. This is a wider transnational problem that needs to be understood in terms of how we're going to deal with the individuals themselves. And while it's good to have counter narratives online, and it's good to maybe begin to use it as a forensic tool, it's not really tackling it is going to take more than just tackling the internet.
One more issue I want to bring up in social media is in different contexts, we've been hearing about individuals and even state actors behind misinformation campaigns or fake news campaigns to meet their various ends. Do you know that if terrorist actors have been exploiting these platforms and algorithms in the same way?
We don't know, but we have no reason to think that they wouldn't be onto this and wouldn't know how to do this. But again, I bring it back to the user and, the person who is being inspired. It's the world's job and various different societies' job to try to figure out what message is getting across, how to intervene in that message, but not just on the internet, but in communities, in cities, etc. And so we don't know that it hasn't been used, but we haven't also seen a lot of forensic detail on how it has been used that way.
Joy Greenberg. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Stephanie.